What up? It's Sprink, and I'm here to give you a glimpse of my mornings. Coming up on 7:45, got a little bit of time here for you. I'm a butcher. I cut meat all day, every day, essentially. I'm the only guy here. I manage it, I operate it, I cut the meat, I order the meat, I clean up after myself. I don't have a little crew like in a normal butcher shop that comes in after I go home that then pulls everything to the center room and hoses it down and sanitizes. No, that's not how it works. You may be seeing the rail here. We don't do halves of beef, don't do slabs of pork, we don't do any of that. Not anymore. We used to. Not anymore. It's not really feasible. It's not profitable. There's just not enough money coming out of meat anymore. I mean, you got to work on like 5–10% margin, 20% on a good day, and then that margin's absorbed by your overhead. My hours, my materials, for pack and wrap, the peach paper, my knives. It goes quick. It goes really quick, but it's doable, and really only because we're able to order in at maybe 20 cents more per pound, pre-boned subprimals. This is shoulder clod. It's what most people would call an English roast or a cross rib roast, cross rib steak. The flat iron, which is actually the second most tender piece of meat on the animal. So it sits right off the back of the tricep on top of this thick, ropey tendon. That muscle does no work the entire life of the animal. Absolutely none. I just realized the lens is over here. I'm not looking at the lens. Whoops. Anyway, great piece of meat. It's my favorite. Absolutely love it. We're going to get in some cutting here in just a moment or two. Got a special order for 40 pounds of that cross rib roast. I should really trim my nails. It does help with holding the meat though and keeping my fingertips on when the knife comes across. But anyway, yeah, 40 pounds of cross rib roast. So I'm going to get the camera hung up and we'll give you a little glimpse of some knife work. Alrighty, so I'm just going to get a quick re-hone here, get that cleaned up. This is just a diamond plate, 3,000 grit. It's more than enough. You don't need to go to that 8,000, 10,000, 16,000. This is more than enough. I like to just hit the knife on the stone once in the morning, and then from there it's just honing. Just with a steel rod, or I got a basalt honing stone as well. That's just metal fouled, so it's not really taking material off. It's just realigning that edge, getting it back up and true. So I get this back to a razor sharp edge, which again, 3,000 grit is more than enough. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to go up to 8,000 or 12,000, whatever the fuck thousands of grit. Sure, on a sashimi knife, on a sushi knife, for actual shaving purposes, yes, you want to go up to that mark. We're cutting beef today. We're going to be ripping through tendon and fat and silver skin, sinews. It's just not necessary to be that high of a grit. So, there we go. That's more than enough. Let's rip this guy open. Give you an idea of what we're working with here. So, this section here, this little kind of triangular piece coming off the side, there's the flat iron. That's that tender piece that I was talking about. There's two of them. It sits on top of a tendon that runs right through the center here. Now, this is bone skin, this little gross layer that I'll take off here. That's bone skin, and it's disgusting. If you grind that, it's gritty. It's got this kind of a sandy texture to it. Not a fun thing to eat. I don't enjoy it personally. So I get rid of it. That is trash. Right there in that wad of plastic. Absolute junk. Now, you can see a part of that tendon that I'm talking about right here. the main body of the tendon hiding up in this hole. It's this little floppy thing. You gotta kind of fillet both sides of that off like a fish fillet. But we're not gonna do that with this piece. You know, I need 40 pounds of clod for a customer so that they can make stew meat out of it. Now I'm just prepping it for them, just getting it cleaned up, because they don't want to pay my rate of $3.99 per pound for stew meat. They want to pay, I think it was $2.69. So they're just getting this cleaned up. You know, get the fat cap off essentially, get it leaned out. Get it ready for them. Wedge out that there. Back over on this side. Take the silver skin off. And you know, it is okay that there's a little bit of meat coming with this, because you're looking at maybe a 64th to an 1/8 of an inch of meat going with it. And it's so close to that outer layer that it's going to have started oxidizing. It's going to be affected by the citrus spray from the plant. It'll turn brown. It's going to have a bit of a different flavor to it. Now, I've cooked whole clods. I've cooked this entire thing before sous vide at 150 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 hours. And I tell you, that outside layer, it's got a funk to it. It's got a different flavor to it. You get all that cleaned up, you get it cleaned off, and it's a much nicer product. It's way better on the plate. I'm just going to clean that out. Got a little bit more bone skin on the back side here. Get that tip off. We'll get back onto the fat cap side and finish cleaning it off. We're getting her down to nice fresh meat. That bit of silver skin gone. There we are. You can't really see that there, can you? There we go. Pull this wedge of fat out of there. And that's mostly bubblegum fat. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of fat going on. And you got hard clay-like fat, you've got bubblegum fat. And I tell you, bubblegum fat, you're going to chew on forever. That clay-like, hard, firm fat that maybe comes out in little fine layers like a biscuit, that's that nice stuff that you want on your steak. It's going to be very easy to render down. It's going to have a lot of flavor to it. But bubblegum fat, you're just going to chew on forever, and it's going to taste like shit. That's gross. Get rid of that. And now I'm going to take what I want for my grind, because I got to get ground beef for the case out there. So we're going to take the tip off the flat iron, because that'll taste great. I'm going to take this back end off, because it's just uglier than sin. That gone. Clean that off. That there. And there we have it. That's what they're getting. $2.69 a pound. It's a great deal. You're getting a lot of quality meat. You know, I'm just flicking off little tiny specks of bone, skin, and you know, bits of spaldy stuff that'll work good in grind, but it's not really trash, but that the customer won't like. So, you know, right there, I'd call that good. That's mint. Absolutely. That's the gist of it. You know, to cut this thing into steaks, you just face cut it, you know, down like so. You know, you'd get down to here, you'd split it in half, rotate it, and then you cut steaks there. Or you can just split the whole thing down the center. You know, whole thing down the center. Cut it into 4 big roasts, or you can cut it into 6 small roasts. As a very versatile piece of meat. Good for grind, stew, short ribs, roast steaks. Hell, you can cut it into really big stew-like chunks for kebabs. It's just awesome. Works great as stir-fry strips. You know, this whole centerpiece, this kind of trapezoidal piece here, that's called the clod heart, and it's very lean. Very, very lean. It's wonderful stuff. For the dollar, you can't get more per pound, quality-wise, than this. Anyway, that'll do it. Just got to get through like 4 more of these, and then the customer's going to have their special order put together, and it's time to roll out the ad change for this coming week. That's my life. This is what I do. Doesn't pay very well because of where I live and who I'm working for, but that aside, that's a rant for another day, probably in some gameplay in the future. Maybe while we're flying a space plane through the upper atmosphere trying not to burn up on re-entry, huh? So, that'll be it.